Welcome to Illinois in Focus Week in Review, where we take a look at some of the top stories from the center square that you may have missed from this past week. I'm Greg Bishop.
Over the weekend, Governor J.B. Pritzker posted this. It says, "Know your rights, Illinois. Here in our state, we stand up for all children and families. Head to the Illinois Immigration Information Hub to learn your rights, make a plan for your family, find legal help, and stay informed about changes to immigration laws." So you can see here he shared some screen grabs of a Know Your Rights campaign flyer. But if you click through to this IllinoisImmigrationInfo.org website, you'll see that this is kind of a public-private partnership of sorts, because it's got these different organizations, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, the ICIRR, you've got Immigrant Justice, the Resurrection Project, National Immigration Center. These are the nonprofits that are involved in this particular website, but you also have the state involved, the Illinois Department of Human Services and the City of Chicago's Office of Immigrant and Migrant and Refugee Rights. So let's take a look at some of what this website has on it, because the governor is directing people to this website, and you can see right up at the top it's got a phone number for if you're in an immigration emergency, but it's also got some hot links to top help items. They say find essential guidance about how to protect yourself and loved ones, including "My loved one's been detained." You can fill out a form there. Prepare for ICE encounter. You can get more information. Let's see what this one says. Know your rights. Different types of campaign flyers that you can put out there. Let's see what those have to say. Remain calm. Do not run. Keep your hands where the agents can see them. If you have the right to deny entry without a valid warrant. It then gives you a couple of different examples of what a valid warrant looks like, or at least a judicial warrant, which ICE can enter the home, versus an administrative warrant that they say ICE cannot enter the home. It goes on, you have a right to remain silent, and you have the right to speak to an attorney, and you have the right to not sign anything. So that's just, again, frustrated with the state of Illinois being able to give standard driver's licenses or state IDs to non-citizens. Now, Illinois does have law that allows many immigrants, it says, without a social security number to get a standard, not a real ID, a standard ID. So federal limits still apply, but you can get a standard driver's license or a standard ID card that's not real ID compliant. So they wouldn't be able to fly domestically, for instance, if they don't have a real ID. They wouldn't be able to get into certain federal buildings, like military buildings, without a federal real ID, or the federally compliant real ID, but they can still get a driver's license in Illinois. So more on that from the IllinoisImmigrationInfo.org website. You can also report violations of rights as you may see it. And again, more information all about that. But that's what the governor's promoting here on his X account and his social media accounts. And you can go through and read all of the various reactions that there are. Former state representative and former Republican gubernatorial candidate challenging Bruce Rauner back in the day. Jeannie Ives, she said, exactly what is Pritzker implying? How about know your laws, like not entering the country illegally? Rhonda Ezell says, we know our rights. We have a right to keep and bear arms. Your unconstitutional PICA Act will be taken down. So referring to the Second Amendment there. So there's the governor, right? But there's other things that state of Illinois U.S. Representative Mary Miller brought to Pritzker's attention when he testified in front of Congress. When was that, last month? Like June 12th or something? Here's that interaction that Mary Miller shared on her social media.
After the presidential election, you stated on MSNBC that, and I quote, "I am going to do everything that I can to protect our undocumented immigrants," end quote. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to submit a Fox News report into the record titled, "Dem Governor J.B. Pritzker vows to do everything I can to protect our undocumented immigrants.
Congresswoman, I was
These
talking about
policies
the people
are
who have
not
lived in our
only
state for
deadly.
decades
These
now.
policies are not only deadly, but they have cost Illinois taxpayers billions, to the tune of $3 billion since 2022. Governor, your state budget doesn't balance without massive yearly tax increases. This year, you hiked taxes by $800 million. Your budgets fund the services of illegal
That's inaccurate,
aliens, while
Congresswoman.
Americans
Again,
are left behind.
inaccurate.
With many
Nearly everything
choosing
is
to flee our
mischaracterized
state.
in your statement.
Governor, I judge you based on your actions, not on your words. And from what I can tell, you are doing everything in your power to roll out the red carpet for illegal aliens to protect them, all at the expense of working people of Illinois. Your policies have been disastrous for our state, and they would be disastrous for our country. And with that, I yield back.
So there you go. There's just a little bit of that back and forth with Congresswoman Mary Miller and Governor J.B. Pritzker last month. So we looked at some of the Know Your Rights campaign material, right? And even the link to get information on how a non-citizen without a social security number can get a standard driver's license in Illinois. But others were concerned earlier this year with legislation that advanced out of the Illinois General Assembly to allow for name changes, and name changes in particular that don't have to be published in a newspaper. This measure during a lame duck session early in this year, January of this year, this is a little bit of the debate back and forth on how that played out
House
in
Bill
the Illinois Senate.
5164, as you all recall, came before this committee in veto session. We had some outreach from the state's attorneys the morning after the committee hearing, and at their request, we've added Senate Floor Amendment number 1, which clarifies that if a court grants a motion to impound a file as allowed by the bill, a name change shall be reported to the Illinois State Police, and the Illinois State Police must update any criminal history, transcript, or offender registration for each person 18 years of age or older to include the change of name as well as the person's former name.
We should know who's here. We should be able to track any change of name to evade something in their past or history. Here we're allowing that to be sealed. The state police is not getting involved in that or tracking that. That is sealed, and that is going to be an easy path or avenue for someone here illegally to just kind of wipe clean their past, albeit their past is from outside of Illinois.
Illinois is one of a few states that is growing population, but only in the illegal immigrants that are coming here. Legal residents, of course, are leaving the state. And then this was doubled down with the Trust Act that was wrongly signed into law and was supported by the overwhelming majority in your party. And this is the final piece of what Governor Pritzker said, you have to go through me, which is why we're doing this on a Sunday in the middle of a snowstorm with little media out here. This is why we're doing this.
Again, this is just a recap. This is from January of this year. We're just kind of going through some of the things that the state of Illinois is putting out there for non-citizens who are worried they might get deported or, as Democrats say, get kidnapped and taken into immigration authorities handling. So this idea of allowing for name changes that aren't going to be published, Republicans warned it's going to cloak non-citizens, illegal immigrants from law enforcement.
This is how you cover up all the wrongdoings of state policy.
This is not something that was held for a snowstorm. This was legislation that passed the House in May. We had it on the docket for a veto session. We held it specifically because the morning after it passed committee, the state's attorney asked us for an amendment. This is legislation that is very focused on removing the requirement for an individual to publicize their name in a newspaper. Let's talk about who those individuals are. Those individuals are adoptees. They're survivors of domestic and intimate partner violence, survivors of human trafficking, survivors of gender-based violence, transgender people, and refugees.
So again, that's State Senator Ramvilli Valum alongside some Republicans debating this measure that allows for those changing their name to not be required to publish it in a newspaper. Republicans felt that allowed for illegal aliens to change their name and cloak from law enforcement. It's a lot to take in. The hemp industry looking to protect themselves from what they say could be the cannabis industry trying to shut them down. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop, editor at the Center Square for the state of Illinois. Go get the headlines in your inbox each and every weekday morning at thecentersquare.com. Just click on newsletter and you'll be able to find that. So last week, we didn't get a chance to unpack this, but it's going to be one of many across the state roundtables, panel discussions about the hemp industry and what they say are the need for common sense regulations. Because right now, there's not much regulation on hemp, except for it has to be under a certain threshold of THC to be considered hemp. But the products that are being derived, vast. You can get textiles out of it, paper products, clothing products, rope. All kinds of different textile. You can get oils out of it, oils that might have some kind of, claims of medicinal use. You might find edibles and gummies and the CBD, the cannabinoids that spurred onto the market. But there's also concerns about some of the derivatives like Delta 8, and it's a mild intoxicating substance that's some are concerned are being targeted towards young people because of how they're packaged. So there's been an effort over the past year and a half or 2 years to regulate hemp, and even Governor J.B. Pritzker getting into it to a point last year where he was supporting a measure to put a lot of regulations on hemp. But the hemp industry says that those regulations were meant to shut the industry down, which would only favor the cannabis industry. So instead, they're looking for some regulations. So that's why they're starting these conversations across the state. State Representative LaShawn Ford, he helped organize this, and he's going to be part of these conversations across the state. They started in Chicago on Thursday last week. And they had one of the panelists from the Illinois Healthy Choices Association, the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association, Craig Katz. He talked about, hemp versus cannabis.
Marijuana and hemp are both parts of the cannabis plant, so it gets a little confusing sometimes for most people to differentiate between those two areas of the same plant. They both derive from the cannabis sativa L plant, and the difference is primarily in the potency of the products. The marijuana products are more potent than the hemp products, and the other difference is that the marijuana products are federally illegal. They are a Schedule I narcotic, and so the state of Illinois had to pass a specific regulation to allow for both the medical sales and the recreational sales of those products. Hemp, on the other hand, is a federally legal product as long as it meets the federally legal standard of 0.3% by dry weight of THC. So consequently, the hemp industry in Illinois and for the most part across the United States is a legal industry.
So with it being a legal industry, you've got to ask yourself who has access to it. If people are making hemp cigarettes, people making hemp drinks. I was at a grocery store over the weekend and was kind of taken aback. This grocery store had a whole section of hemp-infused drinks. And on those drinks, they were all made in Illinois, even some made in Springfield. These hemp-infused drinks are at grocery stores, and they say on the can, got to be 21 to purchase. But is that part of the regulation here? Katz says that, yes, the age issue is something that is being discussed, and it's an important one because the goal is to protect youth.
Thank you, Craig. We can't let you off the hook without me asking one question before we go to J.D. McCormick. And the question is, why is it so difficult to at least get, I heard you speak about we need to protect the minors. why is it so difficult for us to at least pass a law to at least regulate the age?
The answer to that question is I honestly can't tell you why I can't get, or we can't get, legislators, whether it's state legislators, federal legislators, local elected officials, on the same page, because it seems to me that it's an issue that no one should object to. Everyone should want to protect children. And that's one of our primary goals, is to protect children. The problem is, I think, to some extent, it's become a political football, and you get different sides of the aisle that want to make a statement in one way, shape, or form, and their approach to making that statement varies according to what their philosophies are politically. The age gating issue is one of the primary issues, and that is to keep these products available only to people who are 21 years or older, with a possible exception of military veterans between the ages of 18 and 21. Our philosophy on that is if you're old enough to fight for the country, then you should be old enough to make a decision as to what products you can use.
Again, that's Craig Katz with the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association, representing hemp industry actors to get common sense regulations. They say they don't want regulations that ban hemp, because they say that would put out family farms and a whole host of jobs, also profits and economic impact and so on. But what they're pushing for is to be able to still operate, but with some oversight and maybe even some taxation in the mix. When I talked with Katz a couple of months ago about this, they were open to the idea of having a taxing scheme similar to what the marijuana tax is. And we'll look at some of the marijuana tax money just to show you how big of a line item it is in state taxes, and kind of look at where some of that money's going here in a moment. But you've got Katz talking about the possible need of local ordinances.
Thank you, Craig. We can't let you off the hook without me.
Let me get it. There you go.
And so we do that on an individual basis. For instance, in the city of Chicago right now, we are working with various aldermen to enact a city ordinance that will regulate hemp along the same lines as we discussed earlier, which is the age gating, the testing, and the packaging and labeling of products. We have an alderman in Chicago who's planning on presenting an ordinance next week, and it's an ordinance that will regulate the industry in the city, but also another issue that many municipalities and even states find attractive is the fact that there is a taxation aspect to any ordinance or regulation that gets passed. And in this time where we are always searching for new revenue sources and revenue streams to help government fund many programs, it's an opportunity for the government to regulate the industry as well as to derive revenue from the industry and make it more palatable for everyone across the board.
He's talking about taxation and how to go about, how those funds could be used, right? I mean, so that's just the hemp product that they're talking about with possible regulations. Cannabis, again, hemp is in the cannabis family. The marijuana taxes, that's where you can kind of look at where that money's going and just how much is being brought in on a state level. All right, so Illinois has a cannabis, adult recreational cannabis program with taxes upwards to 40+% depending on the potency. Brings in a lot of money. This is a $1 billion industry. We're not looking at the profits that the cannabis growers and sellers are getting from all of this, but we're just going to look at some of the tax revenue that the state's collecting on all of this. So if you go to the Illinois Comptroller's website and you look at the special funds that they have, the fund search, if you just type in cannabis, you'll see that there are 5 different funds for cannabis. Let's look at the Cannabis Development, Business Development Fund, for instance. That's got, $56 million in it. So that's derived from, cannabis taxes. Let's look up some more cannabis. Cannabis expungement. a fund to help people get their cannabis charges expunged, $3.6 million. Let's take a look at some other cannabis funds that there are. Regulation, how much is in that regulation fund? You've got $8.1 million. And then I think one more. We'll just see what the cannabis use of compassionate use of medical cannabis. That also has some tax revenue to it. They've got almost $68 million in that fund. And then you've also got one last cannabis fund here just to see all the different places that the state of Illinois truncates this. This is the local cannabis consumer excise tax fund. And this is money, I'm taking it from the local governments that tack on cannabis taxes, and that's $12.1 million. So these are just, cash on hand for the comptroller. So what about the collections overall? If you go to the comptroller's website, you can also search and find for the collections remitted to the state comptroller for fiscal year 2025. And you'll get a spreadsheet, and it shows you just how much they're bringing in from the cultivators and the dispensaries each month. So $43.8 million in July of 2024, $34.6 million in August of 2024. How much did they bring in the most recent month? In June, $42.4 million in taxes that they collect. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of just how much they're bringing in. Half a billion dollars in tax revenue in total. So a lot of money. How's that money being split up? That's a question that I get all the time. And having covered this since it went into effect, this is fascinating just to see how much exactly there is in money going in, but how it's being split up. So the tax from recreational cannabis sales in Illinois split several ways. More than a third goes to the state's general revenue fund. 10% goes to unpaid bills. 8% goes to law enforcement, and 2% goes to public safety campaigns. So if you're there thinking, all right, he just gave me all those percentages, a third goes to the state debt, 10% goes to unpaid bills, 8% goes to law enforcement, 2% goes to safety campaigns, that leaves about a quarter. Well, nearly a quarter of every cannabis tax dollar goes to community groups through the Restore, Reinvest, and Renew program. What is that program? It's a program that funds nonprofits across the state. Again, if you go to the comptroller's website, you'll be able to see here the Restore, Reinvest, and Renew program, the mission statement, fund programs in Illinois communities that have been harmed by violence, excessive incarceration, and economic disinvestment. Administer funding to support and oversee R3 programs in the areas of assessment and planning and service delivery. And again, the source of the funds coming from General Revenue Fund and the Criminal Justice Information Projects Fund. And you can see here just some of the dollars and what was projected and what was actually spent in those particular fiscal years. Then you can even go and dig further into the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority and all of the different things that they say the program requires. Civil legal aid, economic development, reentry, violence prevention, youth development. You can even see some of the areas that they target, valuing the needs and input of communities that they serve. Programs vary. This is actually a report of the how the funds went in one particular year, and they found that programs valued the needs of the input of communities. They served tailored services to meet those needs, but the program faced implementation delays due to funding administration and COVID-19 challenges. Programs varied greatly in terms of data collection and evaluation capacity. And I think that a couple of those, especially that third one there, varied greatly in terms of data collection and evaluation capacity. That's could be problematic for some people who are wanting some proper oversight and true accountability for how these funds are being used. If they don't really have general data collection that's universal and understood, that could cause some problems with just how successful this particular program is. But regardless, these 400 different applications in 1 year funding 80 community-based programs. And if you look at, again, some of the data that's at the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority, they talk about how most applications indicated they were serving Cook and Chicago's southern region. Most assessments and planning applications were proposals for economic development activities activities, while service delivery applications were more likely to propose youth development programs. The most requested funding amounts were between $100,000 and $499,000. Where did all this go? All the organizations, initial award, 80 organizations, 22 for assessment and planning activities. The Cook, Chicago, Southern region got the most funded organizations, and nearly half of the organizations proposed service delivery. And you see some of the other conclusions there. So that's kind of just an overview of how the money is brought in the marijuana tax. Right, as they have the conversation about how to possibly regulate and tax hemp. And will they have the same type of inflow of revenue? Probably not necessarily equal to, but it could still be more revenue for the state or local governments. So this is going to be an interesting space to see how it plays out in Illinois. Again, as marijuana is illegal federally, right? I mean, there's even lawsuits about whether or not somebody can have their Second Amendment rights taken away for being a recreational cannabis user. So fascinating to see how this is all going to play out. We're joined by Congresswoman Robin Kelly here to discuss some of the latest in her bid for the U.S. Senate, but also some reaction to the big, beautiful bill that President Donald Trump signed. Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking time with us this morning. How are you doing up there? I apologize. Let me 1 second. I got to turn your mic back on. All right. Good morning, Congresswoman.
Good morning. How are you?
You know, I can't complain. I could, but I don't want to waste your time, obviously. But let's get into first, before we talk about your campaign here. Let's talk about the big beautiful bill. What you believe this does to taxpayers, to those on Medicaid, education, energy prices, and then I want to get some of your reaction to what the Republicans have to say about this.
Sure. Well, I don't think it's so beautiful. I think it's a big, ugly law now, and 17 million people will be losing their health care. Maybe not right away, but gradually it'll get to that mark. And 500,000 people in Illinois, people will be losing food assistance, and people on Medicaid will be severely hurt. And despite the misnomer, a lot of people that get food assistance or Medicaid, they work. They just don't earn enough money. And we haven't talked about, even with environmental projects like solar. I was at a hearing and one of the union members talked about how they hired all these people, trained all these people for all the solar projects because of what we passed under the Biden-Harris administration. And now all of that is on pause or stopping. So, you know, people are not going to have jobs. And when hospitals have to close, that'll affect, of course, people's health. And also people won't have jobs. And hospitals and access to healthcare is already such a big issue, you know, in the rural parts of Illinois and all places. And my district is urban, suburban, and rural. I have 4,500 farms in my district.
When it comes to the claims that hospitals are going to close, Republicans point to a $50 billion fund that's set aside specifically for rural hospitals and safety net hospitals, I believe. Is that not enough to help with what might be some rough waters ahead?
Well, I just came back from doing a town hall with Lita Jeffries in Louisiana, and they said 33 of their hospitals can close. In Illinois, 9 rural, this is just rural hospitals can close. I don't think that's enough money. When you just think about those 2 states alone and you think about the entire United States, no, that is not, you know, enough money. And then also there's urban and suburban hospitals that are going to be affected too.
Congresswoman Robin Kelly with us here with the Center Square's Illinois in Focus Daily. The claim that the governor made before the bill was enacted, he said people are going to die. Republicans say that's fear-mongering.
Well, I disagree with the Republicans, and I do agree with the governor, because people are going to die. If people don't have health care, they're going to wait longer and longer and longer to go to the doctor, and then they're going to go to the emergency room, which will cost all of us more money. And we already have issues like maternal mortality and morbidity. The United States ranks terribly when it comes to delivering babies for mamas, and black women die 3 times the rate of white women, and but all women, too many, die. And so what's going to happen there? No, I agree. People will die because they'll wait to take care of their health because they can't afford it. And people are already getting letters, from their insurance places for their health care.
Congresswoman, Republicans also say that able-bodied people should be able to at least do 20 hours of work or community service in order to help with the Medicaid costs. Why is that too much to ask? Doesn't that just essentially take us back to the pre-COVID requirements?
Well, first of all, like I said, most people do work, and they're trying to act like all these lazy people are on Medicaid or getting food stamps. Most people do work. They just cannot afford, they don't make enough money. So they can't afford their health care. They need some extra help, or they can't afford, to buy groceries. And the thing we need to think about when you think about SNAP, the food supplemental, that if people can't buy groceries, they're not going to the grocery store. If they don't shop, the stores are not going to the farmers. We are all in this together, and people seem to forget that we're all connected. If hospitals close, that affects everybody, not just the person on Medicaid. It affects everybody. Even more people will have less access.
And there'd no question have impacts on local economies as well if a local
Definitely.
rural hospital closes. Congresswoman Robin Kelly, one last question on the big beautiful bill, and then we'll talk about the 2026 March primary, which is rapidly approaching. Listen, the big beautiful bill, whatever it's called. All right, at one point it was called a One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I don't know what the final title of it was, but it's a big bill. There's a lot in there. Is there anything that you see as positive that's in that bill?
There might be something minor, but nothing comes to the top. I think because the ugly is so ugly, and to me, it's immoral and evil. So, that's what takes precedence: people's lives, people's health, people being able to, childcare, caps on loans. That's going to hurt who can become a doctor, who can go to medical school. There's so much ugly and frankly evil and mean that I just can't believe that was a bill signed into law.
Even like the no tax on tips, the no tax on
but the no tax on tips, even the devil's in the details. That's temporary. But the idea that the well-connected and well-off, their tax breaks are permanent. And, we tend to look at the headline, but not delve deeper. So, yeah, and there's no tax on tip sounds better than it is. I'll put it like that.
And then finally on the big beautiful bill, Illinois obviously had the Illinois Invest in Kids program, the tax credit scholarship program that was Illinois based. Now there's going to be this federal program in 2027. Should Illinois opt into that?
Well, I want us to do whatever we can do within reason, to continue the programs that we can continue. I compliment Illinois. Like I had legislation that Medicaid postpartum coverage went from 60 days to a year. Illinois, was the first to enact that. So I'm sure Illinois will look at what is best for them to do between the state legislature and also with the governor.
Congresswoman Robin Kelly with us. You are vying to take the U.S. Senate seat that U.S. Senator Dick Durbin's retiring from after this term. You've got quite a history of elections. You've ran in a safe Democratic jurisdiction for Congress. I think I saw the vote totals are like 81 to 14 or something like that in some of these races. So clearly it's a safe district.
After I got there, it was a battle to get there.
Right. But you also beat an incumbent Democrat too in a primary, which is something else to mention here. But when it came to a statewide race, that didn't work out for you. I believe it was Treasurer against Rutherford back in 2010.
Sure. I won the Democratic primary, but I didn't win at the end. But I just said there was another plan for me, and it was Congress.
So with that, you ran those two types of races, right? A statewide race, a local safe district race. What lessons have you learned? What are you going to take away from that when it comes to appealing to the entirety of Illinois for their vote for U.S. Senate?
Well, as I said, my district is urban, suburban, and rural. I feel like I have Illinois in my district right now. And how I approach things, most people want a roof over their head, a job, they want health care, good education for their kids, and they want to feel safe. No matter where you live, I think most people want that. And I have built good relations all over the state. I was the Democratic Party chair, so I've worked up and down the state, and then I was Alexi Janulis's chief of staff in the treasurer's office. So, I've worked, as I said, across the state on the government side and on the other side. I think listening to people, listening about what their struggles are every day, I just really believe that we all do better when we all do better. We're all healthier when we're all healthier, and safer when we're all safer. And those are the things that I'm interested in, and I have worked on in all my life in politics or in government.
There's going to be a lot of time here between now and November to really delve into policy positions and such, but heading into the March primary, there's a crowded field looking to get into the U.S. Senate seat to make it through that Democratic primary in March. What sets you aside from the likes of Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, which just stacked up a bunch of endorsements, including the governor, including Speaker Welch and others? You've got another colleague of yours in Congress, Raja Krishnamurthy, vying for it as well. How
Sure.
do you distinguish yourself different from your fellow Democrats?
Well, I'm the only one that's worked effectively on every level of government, from local government to state to county, and now the federal government. And as I said, my district is urban, suburban, and rural. I have Illinois in my district, so I'm the one that has passed federal legislation to affect urban, suburban, and rural areas. So I think I have, some things going on that they don't have. And also, even though I didn't win the treasurer's race, I'm the one that has won running in the primary, not on my own, not connected with the governor. So I have, I have done that also, and my opponents cannot say that. But I'm a very hard worker. I have that reputation. I have great constituent services, and those are the things I will carry on as I go into the Senate. You need a proven leader that can hit the ground running, because Trump and J.D. Vance will still be there, and I have great relations in the Senate, and I've worked with the Senate to pass a lot of different bills, from government efficiency, gun violence prevention, health care, consumer protection. I just ask people to check the record, check the work product.
And then finally here, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, money, obviously important in politics. Governor Pritzker's a billionaire. We tapped, Juliana Stratton. How do you surmount any financial, hurdles there may be, including opponents having substantial war chests?
Well, you know what? Again, I'm asking people to check the record, check the work product, check what's been done, and hopefully they'll let that be the eyes into the future. There's examples more and more about you don't have to have the most money. We've had that in, Angela Alsobrook, the senator, Karen Bass, the mayor of LA. We just had it in New York, and I'm just hoping people look past the money. Having the most money doesn't mean you're the most qualified, and I will do the work. I know that I'm a workhorse, not a show horse.
Congresswoman Robin Kelly, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us this morning here live with the Center Square and Illinois in Focus. Surely we'll talk again before the March primary. As
I look forward to it.
We haven't even gotten into the official filing season yet.
Right.
I mean, that happens later this month into early next month. So we'll see all the names that officially get filed at the State Board of Elections. Greatly appreciate you taking the time this morning.
Thank you so much.
Will Illinois opt in to the tax credit scholarship program that the federal government approved. It's an ongoing question as we head into the 2026 election, but also the 2027 implementation of the new federal program that allows for a $1,700 donation to a scholarship granting organization in exchange for 100% federal tax credit on that $1,700. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop on the road here in my camper as we bring you the live program each and every weekday morning. Sometimes I'm in my home office. Other times I'm likely going to be out on the road, traveling around the state of Illinois, see what's going on in various places. I'm up at the Aurora Sportsman's Club this morning, and I'll be here for a couple of days. Thanks to the club for letting me park my camper here. So we've got the ongoing question about education and how the state of Illinois could possibly go about joining the federal program that was part of the big, beautiful bill to allow for parents to take their kids to a school of their choice. Here is Linda McMahon, the secretary of the U.S. Department of Education yesterday at an ALEC summit, the American Legislative Exchange Council, and they talked about the program that was created with the federal tax credit for school scholarship grants that people want to make. Illinois had something like this called the Invest in Kids program, which is no longer in place because legislators let it expire. But here's McMahon talking about the importance of school choice.
Let's have parents be at the center of that, because parents are with their children. They know what is best for their child, and they should have the choice to put their children in schools where they can flourish. No child should be a prisoner of a failing school. And so to be able to, thank you. And so as we look at the new legislation, I mean, well, we've just allocated another, we're able to get past, another $60 million for school choice. So now we're up to $500 million. And that just makes such a big difference.
School choice seems to be a priority of the Trump administration, again, with this new tax credit program that's going to be implemented in 2027. It's nationwide, but states have to opt in. Now, yesterday we talked live with Congresswoman Robin Kelly, a Democrat in Congress, who's vying for the U.S. Senate seat that Dick Durbin is going to be vacating after this term. I asked her some questions about the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. She obviously was critical of the estimated cuts to Medicaid and the work requirements that people are going to have in place in order to get Medicaid, unless, of course, they're disabled and they have other factors involved. But if they're able-bodied, they have to work, right? So she was critical of those things, but I asked her, is there anything good in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill?
Beautiful Bill Act. I don't know what the final title of it was, but it's a big bill. There's a lot in there. Is there anything that you see as positive that's in that bill?
There might be something minor, but nothing comes to the top. I think because the ugly is so ugly, and to me, it's immoral and evil. So, that's what takes precedence: people's lives, people's health, people being able to, childcare, caps on loans. That's going to hurt who can become a doctor, who can go to medical school. There's so much ugly and frankly, evil and mean that I just can't believe that was a bill signed into law.
Even like the no tax on tips, the no tax on...
But the no tax on tips, even, the devil's in the details, that's temporary. But the idea that the well-connected and well-off, their tax breaks are permanent. And, we tend to look at the headline, but not delve deeper. So, yeah, and there's no tax on tip sounds better than it is. I'll put it like that.
And then finally on the Big Beautiful Bill, Illinois obviously had the Illinois Invest in Kids program, the tax credit scholarship program that was Illinois based. Now there's going to be this federal program in 2027. Should Illinois opt into that?
Well, I want us to do whatever we can do within reason, to continue the programs that we can continue. I compliment Illinois. Like I had legislation that Medicaid postpartum coverage went from 60 days to a year. Illinois, was the first to enact that. So I'm sure Illinois will look at what is best for them to do between the state legislature and also with the governor.
So what's going to happen? Is the governor going to actually opt into this, or are we not going to opt into it and not allow for Illinois scholarship granting organizations to do what they've done with the Invest in Kids Act, right? We've got the protocol laid down. We've got the infrastructure already there to just turn the key and we're ready to go again. But clearly there's going to be a lot of political conversations about this over the next year or so as we get ready to get to that 2027 year of when this kicks in. Governor Pritzker, obviously, we talked about this the other day, said that this could, divert public dollars from public schools. That's really what the teachers union has criticized these types of voucher programs as. But proponents say, listen, this is private dollars going into these funds. It's not tax dollars. Back to Linda McMahon, the Department of Education. When are we going to actually see that thing closed down from the U.S. government?
I specifically didn't say we were shutting down the Department of Education. We're talking about this and trying to say, no, we're repurposing all the good parts and all the things, the necessary functions, and kind of shifting them to the different places once you get that all laid out, right?
And that's exactly the plan. However, I have a boss who says to me every time I see him, so how are we moving along with shutting down the Department of Education? But he means exactly what you have said and what I have said. He wants to, the teachers unions, which you affectionately mentioned, are
oh, so affectionately,
are insistent, that the president hates education and he's getting rid of education. Well, it's the most far-fetched thing ever. He really just wants to make it the most excellent education system that can be in the world.
Oh, absolutely. The panel before us was talking about kind of disrupting it in a way that kind of iron sharpens iron. This is not an attack on public schools. This is a way for public schools to get out of what they've been stuck in.
And of course, the idea of competition spurs on better product. Can we get better product if indeed there's more competition with education through a voucher program to send kids to schools of their choice, charter schools, or homeschool even? I don't know. We'll be watching that. State of Illinois asking for another delay in filing their final brief to the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in the gun ban challenge. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning here for more Illinois in Focus Daily. So we've got that case we're going to look at, but another case that the appeals court took up and made an order on was whether or not non-citizen aliens in Illinois or in the U.S. can possess firearms if they're here illegally. It's an interesting question that came up a while back, but we've got the order now from the appeals court in this case. So let's go ahead and take a look at that before we review what the state of Illinois is requesting in the gun ban litigation that's set for oral argument September 22nd, but one of the attorneys for the state saying that they don't have the time to put together the final brief that they're supposed to deliver to the court by the 28th, which is just 10 days away. So we'll talk about that Barnett delay request in a moment, but I want to go to the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals, where they had a separate case that we talked about a while back, and it was about whether or not non-citizens in the country can have firearms. So let's go ahead and pull this order up. It was released on the 16th, I believe. Oh, it says it right there. Yep, on the 16th. So this is from the U.S. 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. Gilberto Caballero Flores is the defendant here. And it talks about how, the Chicago police arrested him after he repeatedly fired a pistol in a city street. Grand jury later indicted him for possession of a firearm as an illegal alien in violation of U.S. law. And the court said we must decide whether that federal law comports with the Second Amendment. Fascinating here because when you look at an analysis of this particular case, it essentially breaks it down and it says that, the background is this individual, an illegal alien at the time, was arrested in Chicago in 2020 on June 1st after firing a pistol several times. The government argued that he fired indiscriminately. The grand jury later indicted him, of course, as we mentioned. And the district court, where we talked about this before it got to the appeals court, the district court rejected the challenge of the law on its face that illegal aliens couldn't have firearms. But they went on and upheld it as applied to him, right? So there's a difference between as applied and a facial challenge. Facial challenge, from my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a journalist, but from my understanding covering these cases, a facial challenge means it's unconstitutional on its face. As applied is when it's being applied to an individual. And so those are kind of two different approaches to these types of challenges. So the analysis of this ruling essentially says that the district court upheld the as applied challenge, ruling that the statute was unconstitutional as applied to Flores because he was employed, had no felony convictions, was deemed trustworthy, and all of that was akin to loyalists to the country from back in the day. So we have this new standard in how courts are to evaluate Second Amendment challenges. And this is all coming from the U.S. Supreme Court with the Bruin case, and before that, the Heller case, and before that, several others. But ultimately, the text, history, and tradition, right? That's something that you have to evaluate whenever you're ultimately taking a look at these cases. So the appeals court broke some of that down, talked about how, from Heller, for instance, it noted that people, it includes those who have sufficient connection to a U.S. community. Now, Seventh Circuit precedent in a separate case, Meza Rodriguez, held that some illegal aliens may be protected, though other circuits disagree, categorically excluding illegal aliens. So you might have this case ultimately get to the U.S. Supreme Court at some point, but as of right now, with this appeals case, the appeals court reversed the district court and remanded the case back to the district court. What that means is that the appeals court's simply kicking the case back to the district court to say, do it again. Here's the new framework. Decide this case again. So the textual analysis, the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals broke down the historical tradition, talking about how the government must show that law aligns with historical firearm regulation traditions, and the court found that historically illegal aliens were disarmed unless they swore allegiance to the sovereign, which, the United States. And then also you've got the court essentially holding that, and this is the appeals court on the Flores case, the non-citizen with a gun, reversing the district court dismissing the charges against Flores, saying that the federal statute prohibiting illegal aliens from having firearms is constitutional, both facially and as applied to Flores. The statute's prohibition of illegal aliens possessing firearms is consistent with the Second Amendment's tradition and textual analysis, they say. So let's just pull up this brief again, this order from the court, and you can see it's 22 pages, breaks down all the background, the district court's actions that they took, looking at some of the precedents and the lens of which the appeals court's going to look at all this. But I'm just going to get down to the conclusion here as you see all of the textual and legal analysis that the Seventh Circuit's performed here. Ultimately, they say the Second Amendment secures the rights of people of fundamental rights, and government thus bears the substantial burden of proving that a law limiting the right fits within our nation's regular tradition. That burden has been carried here. The district court's decision to dismiss the indictment against Flores is reversed, and the case is remanded for proceedings consistent with this opinion. So we'll obviously have to track that case a little bit more, because in Illinois, if you recall, if not, you can go look at the Center Square's archives and find that Illinois approved a law that says non-citizens can become police officers. And people were questioning, well, how is that possible? If a non-citizen can't have a firearm, how can they be a police officer? So is this going to impact that? And again, I think it's a different scenario when you're talking about illegal immigration and non-citizens. You know, there are some people in this country as non-citizens who may be on a work visa or some other type of green card. I think the Trump card that they have, it's expensive to be able to have a non-citizen come into the country and kind of get a free pass. But you've got, different categories of non-citizens, illegal aliens, and, those who are in the country with a certain, hall pass, so to speak. So how that's going to be impacted, the law that Illinois has when it comes to allowing for non-citizens to become police officers, is this going to impact that at all? We'll obviously be tracking that. But that's just one case, right? As I mentioned at the top of the segment, you have the Barnett case. Everybody's anxiously awaiting the September 22nd oral arguments in the challenge against Illinois' gun and magazine ban. And we have a filing from the state and asking that they have another delay in filing their final brief. So let's pull this up here. This is the filing from the state in the Barnett case, filed last night. And this says they are looking to extend the timeline to file the brief. State defendants, appellants, Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul, State Police Director Brendan Kelly, and Governor J.B. Pritzker move that the court give a 14-day extension from July 28th to August 14th to file their final brief in this appeal. The attached declaration is submitted in support of this motion. All right, so Kwame Raoul files that, and we've got this case that started weeks after the Protect Illinois Communities Act, the gun ban, was put into effect in January 2023. You had federal cases filed all up and down the districts. In the Central District, there were 4 cases that were filed, ultimately being combined. And I know some of you know this background, but others may be just tuning in. You had the preliminary issues, the initial requests for injunction while they deal with the question. That was approved by the district court in 2023, went all the way up to the appeals court, and then even up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said they're not going to take the case because it's not ripe. So it got kicked all the way back down to the district court to deal with the merits. And they had that 4-day bench trial in 2024, and District Judge Stephen McGlynn finding that the law was unconstitutional. Now it's in the appeals court, and here we are with oral arguments set for September 22nd. The state defending the law, essentially saying that unprecedented societal concerns about mass shootings is why the law is necessary, and they're trying to ban dangerous and unusual firearms. Plaintiffs say you can't ban commonly owned firearms. They say that text, history, and tradition doesn't allow for Illinois' law to be upheld. You even have the U.S. Department of Justice filing on behalf of the plaintiffs saying that the law is unconstitutional. So those are the things that the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals is having to deal with. And on September 22nd, they're going to have oral arguments. But we're not going to have the final briefs from the state possibly until August 14th. So this is just a request that the Attorney General from Illinois is asking the Seventh Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals to do, is to delay their brief. Now they say, and we'll read through some of this, just to give you an idea of what why they're requesting this. So this is from Megan Brown. She's the Assistant Attorney General, and I did look up how much she makes, and it's $91,900 a year from the Comptroller's database as the Assistant Attorney General, Megan Brown. But continuing on here, you'll see that she lays out that she's the Assistant Attorney General. She's been handling this case. The state defendants' appellants reply is due by July 28th on one extension of time. So they've already requested an extension. This is the state defendant appellant's second request for an extension for the time. She says that she's going to be unable to complete the reply brief for state defendants in this appeal, have it reviewed through the regular review process of the Civil Appeals Division, finalize it, and file it with the court by July 28th. Again, that's 10 days from now. June 24th, she presented oral arguments on behalf of another case. She prepared oral arguments for that and was a priority. She also says that she was responsible for drafting briefs and managing litigation in other matters. Finally, in order to completely draft the reply brief, in this case, I must address 4 merits briefs and 4 amicus briefs, together totaling over 200 pages in length, which exceeds the length of responses briefs in typical cases. If granted, the request extension of August 14th would still allow briefing to be completed more than 5 weeks before the September 22nd oral arguments. So again, she says she gave the other litigants a heads up, and we'll see what happens here. She says, I do not request this extension of time from July 28th, 2025 to August 14th to file a reply brief in this appeal for purpose of delay, but so that I may try to meet my professional responsibilities, properly represent my clients, and provide this court with a thorough brief in this case. So there you go. That's the state asking for, yet again, another extension in filing their final brief, as the attorney handling this for the Attorney General's office says that she's got a lot of other cases she's working as well. Remember, the Attorney General requested more money from taxpayers to handle cases, primarily because they said the influx of litigation they fully expected to go up against with the Trump administration. We've seen the Attorney General's office. It's like every day he announces, we're suing the Trump administration. We're suing a lawsuit against the Trump administration. We're joining a lawsuit against the Trump administration. But when it comes to these types of issues, we're seeing yet a second delay being requested. One's already been granted. How this is going to play out, we'll be watching for you, but that is some of the latest in gun litigation. As always, you can find these stories and so much more at thecentersquare.com. And don't forget to join me live weekday mornings right here at the Center Square for Illinois in Focus Daily.